So the gist of this video is that I bought a Northridge grinder. I bought the fully loaded package. ProPack, I think is what George calls it at Northridge. It's tiltable. It's got 2 tool arm capacity. Comes with a really slick work rest tool arm. I think they call it the rat arm. Really adjustable. I don't, for the most part, use work rests. I predominantly freehand grind, but on the off chance or the occasion where I do actually need to use a work rest, strangely enough, I owned a work rest, or the rat arm work rest, before I owned the Northridge grinder. I'd purchased this from George a couple of years back when it was first released, because the work rest that came with my grinder was worthless. As really the grinder I owned previously was kind of worthless. And that's actually the reason that I was making this particular video. There's a lot of grinders on the market right now. Staggering number. I can't believe how many have happened or have come out since I started making knives. My previous experience with grinders was the first one that I had was a Wilton square wheel. Many of you probably won't even know what that is. It was a pretty bomb-proof machine. It was single speed when I got it. I converted it to variable speed, but the single speed option was ungodly fast and off. Had that for 10 years. It developed some pretty decent grinding skills as a result of that. And then my second machine was supposed to be a pretty significant upgrade because it allowed for tool arm changes and things of that sort. But there were so many things wrong with that machine straight out of the chute that I ended up having to effectively rebuild it, converted it to direct drive where it was previously a pulley and belt operated system, added an additional tool arm slot, modified 1,000 different things trying to get it to run true and smooth. And at the end of the day, you're not making a Ferrari out of a farm implement. And ultimately, that was my problem. It gave me a very bad taste in my mouth, but it also educated me on what to look for in a machine, whether I wanted to or not. I've learned an incredible amount about grinder design. First and foremost, the reason that I went with Northridge is the level of precision that they maintain. You can go online and see 1,000 different photographs of people's Northridge grinders, and I'm sure it's pretty apparent. Just even the finish of the tracking wheel, the drive wheel, the pulleys, it's unbelievable just how detail-oriented the company is. In fact, actually, that brings up a couple of very noteworthy observations I can make. I'm holding a handful of things that I can use as props, if you will, to demonstrate what I was sort of alluding to. First and foremost, I guess we'll use bolts as an example. Northridge builds everything in-house. Every single thing in this grinder, with the exception of the VFD, the motor, and bolts that they use for axles and bearings. Everything else is done in-house. So the wheels, the platen, all of the hardware, it's all machined and all made of U.S.-made parts. Very few other companies, I think, even pay attention to where they're buying things. This comes into play, or is important, because it allows them to keep track of things like tolerances and making sure that things are parallel when they're supposed to be parallel, or perpendicular when they're supposed to be perpendicular. That's where the axles come into play. My previous grinder used hardware store bolts. Those were axles holding wheels. The problem with these things is that they're the furthest thing from precision. They aren't cut with any level of control. They're not intended. They're designed to hold things together. They aren't designed to be used as axles. Now, granted, that could be said of almost every bolt, but there are bolts that are actually cut perpendicular and properly, and there are bolts that aren't. And this is a shitty Chinese, probably 8-cent hardware store part. And this would be a precision cut bolt that Northridge uses for their wheels. This is easy to measure for. This is not rocket surgery. I'm not This isn't stuff that you have to use a dial test indicator and precision granite plate to be able to determine. You can use a square. This is a machinist square. It's not even a really expensive one. Buy one. You can use these things to determine all sorts of stuff, but most importantly, you can put it against one surface and look and see if the other surface is perpendicular to that first surface. If you hold this against the wheel on the platen frame and see light on one side of the wheel versus the other, you know that your wheel isn't perfectly perpendicular. That's a big deal. It means that the belt's going to be pulled in one direction, and that generates heat, and it also burns out bearings. I was buying crummy bearings by the sleeve because I was constantly burning them out because none of my axles were straight. They didn't bother to do the diligence of, I don't know, making sure that the taps that they were using were going in straight. This is not rocket surgery. Again, you should, when you buy a new machine, all of this stuff should have been done for you. You shouldn't have to find this stuff out on your own. And it'll rear its head, perhaps not initially. You won't notice things, except maybe perhaps it doesn't track straight. But you can get some really, really horrible problems. I mentioned burned out bearings. Tracking issues were certainly one thing. Wheels wearing unevenly or inconsistently. Technically, an idler wheel pretty much shouldn't wear at all if you do it right. If you keep things lined up and perpendicular and parallel where they're supposed to be, the machine itself should run and track without issue, and it should do so pretty much indefinitely. To add to that, I have a friend who's been a professional knife maker for 30 plus years. I don't really know how long he's been, but he started buying grinders. I think he said 1987 was the first year he bought a grinder. He's got 4 of exactly the same machines. These were industrial commercial grinders. And when I talked to him a few weeks ago, he told me that in the span of time since he purchased his first machine, he has not done any maintenance to them whatsoever. This sounds almost unbelievable to me because I had such a horrible experience with my previous grinder where I was replacing stuff all the time and chasing issues all the time. That's sort of my point. The machine that I bought had a reputation for being a high-quality machine. Turns out that is not always the case. You can get a dud, and maybe you get a good one, and that's great. But I don't know, man. I don't like gambling. These are high-dollar machines. This is not cheap stuff. I don't have the money. I don't have the space. I have to have one machine that does it exactly right the first time, and I have to know that I can rely on it. This is a passion for me. It's something that I take very seriously, and I don't want to fool with tools. I don't want to make machines. I want to make knives. So the Northridge, George and the crew at Northridge keep tolerances that the aerospace industry talks about. These are not farm implements. These are much closer in pedigree to Ferrari or McLaren. The machines are extremely well built, and they're extremely tight tolerance. You can see it and feel it in every single thing you touch. In fact, I'll grab the camera here real quick just to give you a couple of for instances. If you look at the wheels, they're extremely high quality, precision turned, just gorgeous workmanship, and that reflects in how it runs. Just kick this sucker on here. The tensioning system is a ratchet tensioning system. This is one of their upgrades. It doesn't seem like that would be a big deal, but man, when you're working and you want a slack belt, being able to have a slack belt and have it still track properly, it's a wonderful thing, and this does it so effortlessly. I'm not sure if you're seeing my hand here. There's no force required to apply tension to this. It's just effortless. You turn the machine on. Dead smooth. You adjust tracking and that belt just glides in whichever direction you ask for. Smooth as glass, bomb-proof. The tool arm locks in place with I elected to do their stock tension wheels. I put them on the same side. I'm a left-hander, so this is just much easier for me. You can do it on the other side as well. They've got points so that you can space or even offset the locking screws. But again, these are all done in-house, and it's just jewel-like stuff that feels rock solid, takes no effort whatsoever to tighten. The screws themselves tighten against a plate, which in turn applies pressure to the tool arm so that it doesn't actually mar the finish of the tool arm, but it locks it in good and tight. It's just simple, thoughtful things like that. The balance of the machine, when you want to switch it from vertical to horizontal. In fact, I'm going to do this while the machine is on so you can get an idea as to just how effortless this is. So this is the release lever. I'll release it while the machine is on, and you can just see how it just perfectly balances as a result of the gas strut that he uses to offset things. One hand locked into place, effortless, dead smooth. I'll release it again, pops up, move it up, one hand, no pressure whatsoever, brings it right back up. It doesn't sound like that would be such a big deal, but when you're using this thing and it's the little things that matter. It's obvious that not only is he paying attention to the serious things, but he's paying attention to the small things that guys would never notice. My previous machine, I had to convert so that it would do this. It took a lot of force to be able to throw that machine over onto its side, and it was certainly nowhere near as smooth as this. I just can't get my head around how beautiful this machine is. I elected to use a Baldor 2 horsepower motor. I understand that the stock motor option is a Leeson. I don't know. From what I understand, this is a better motor. I don't know. I paid the money. I only wanted to do it once. I'm not even sure if there are too many of those available. But I just wanted to do this machine is going to be my last machine. It does absolutely every single thing that I needed it to do, and then some. With, as far as I can tell, no concession. I can't see the downside yet on this machine. Maybe I'll find one, but I did my research. I looked at every other machine I could. I won't bother mentioning names. I'm sure you guys already know a whole bunch of them. There, Travis Wirtz's machine, the TW90, comes to mind. That was what I thought I was going to get until I got this machine. Travis is a wicked good guy. It makes a great grinder. But coming back to Northridge, the big reason that I prefer the Northridge and why I went to the Northridge, because I was hovering between the two of them, there isn't any doubt, it comes down to it being built in-house. All of the parts are made by Northridge. I can call Northridge and I can say, hey, I nuked a 2-inch wheel when I stuffed something into it or did something stupid, and they have their wheels because they make them. They're not waiting for somebody else that they've outsourced stuff to. I don't have to worry about them being on vacation for 2 years because they've taken time off. This is a company that really only makes grinders for us. The other thing that they do is aerospace contracts. This is not the end of what they do or the beginning of what they do. It's just something that they offer. When I went to visit them, and I should have done a video on that, it was a building with I don't know, half a dozen or more Haas VMCs and CNC lathe, and it was all industrial stuff, and the building was like a clean room. It was gorgeous. And you could tell that they're very, very serious about how they operate. This isn't something that's being done in somebody's basement or something that they designed and they're having parts made for elsewhere. This is all done by them. Their attention to detail displays that. I really can't come up with a downside to this machine. And I'm finicky enough, I think, to where other people might benefit from my position on it. Little details. Bringing this up because it should be obvious. This should just be the way that all machines are made, but it's not. So that's why I'm showing you. This is a machinist square. In a perfect world, all of your wheels would be perpendicular to whatever they were mounted to, and then of course parallel to one another so that they would run flat and true and square. Grab yourself a machinist square and do this with your machine. This is the just the idler wheel up on the top of my platen assembly, and I've taken a flashlight so that we can see if there's any light leak when I hold the machinist square up to the 2-inch idler wheel while I have the thick plate mounted up against the C plate of the platen assembly. So what I'm doing here is just holding that in place, and as you can see, there is, let's see if I can't get it so that you can really see light there. There is no light leak whatsoever up against the wheel. The only light that you see shining through there is where the grooves are. This is how every machine needs to be made if it's going to work and last properly. It's a foregone conclusion. The reason that this is being brought up right now is that my previous machine, none of my wheels did this. Absolutely none of them. They all had issues. So you got to know what to look for and what to watch out for. These are the reasons that things have tracking issues, that things wear out too fast. It's just one tiny little detail that needs to get nailed. It should be a foregone conclusion, but here I am telling you about it, which means that it's not. You have to be told about it. Just something to think about. A couple more cool tidbits. All of the work rests for the grinder. This is specifically for the rat arm, but even the work rest that comes with the platen assembly, they're all black nitride coated. The rat arm has hardware that is all 303 stainless. And this is all made in-house, by the way. This is all U.S. materials, all made in-house, just like the rest of the grinder. High precision, high quality stuff that won't do anything stupid as time goes on. The ratcheting system is also carbonitride coated. These are high carbon steel. The wheel and the pawl are high carbon steel and then carbonitrided so that they're probably high 50s or even low 60s Rockwell for wear resistance. So they'll last a long time. All of the bushings and pivots and spring areas are sealed so that they don't allow any form of grit to come in. Another cool little detail here, and again, it's little stuff like this. The bolt here that's used for the tracking arm assembly, this was manufactured in-house. It's made of hardened 4140. The reason specifically that it was made in-house is because they couldn't find anything that would do exactly what it needed to do, pivot properly, and hold and maintain tolerance and tightness. There wasn't anything available on the market that they could find, so they made it. They made it in-house. That's the whole point. The bracketry for the tilt mechanism is all sealed. These are steel on bronze with Teflon bushings. So nothing actually comes in contact with aluminum, so there's no galling or anything of the sort. And again, they're completely sealed, so they'll also resist grit, etc., etc. It's just tiny little details like this that you're paying for one way or the other. You're either getting them, though, or you're not. That's sort of the reason, one of the big reasons I went with Northridge. I'm spending the money. It's all of these machines in this price range are comparable in that sort of price range. So get the good stuff. Get the things that actually make a difference long term. I really genuinely want this to be the last grinder I have to buy. So there it is.